society now sees me as like, oh, she has no legs. Like I'll make comments about my legs and someone's like, oh, do we laugh?
Yeah, I know. You probably horrify people, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll just come in and you'll just be like, let's go eat. I want to go to IHOP. And everyone's like, whoa.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to use that. I never did that one before.
There's gonna be way more of these throughout the episode, okay? So you can just have them. This is Oksana Masters. She was born with physical birth defects caused by radiation from Chernobyl and overcame a life of physical and mental hardships to become one of the most decorated Paralympic athletes of all time. Today, we're gonna talk about what it was like growing up in a Ukrainian orphanage, how channeling rage into athletics saved her life, and how she risked permanent injuries to become a Paralympic gold medalist. Now, enjoy my conversation with Oksana Masters. Welcome to camp. Oksana Masters. That's way too loud, actually. Now that I realize that we were supposed to do ASMR, that's what you wanted to do before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oksana. It's so soft. Yes.
You know what I should do?
Tell me.
I should have my voice like this with my legs on, and I should talk like this when my legs are off.
As soon as you pop them off.
Yeah.
And then you just get really quiet.
Okay, so where was I going? Yeah.
So we were just saying before, so you, I mean, just like a little backstory, born in Ukraine and then became the most decorated Paralympian in the winter sports of all time ever. That's basically the whole story.
That's it. I'm, like I said, pretty boring.
But just like rewinding all the way to sort of like where it starts.
Yeah.
The reason you were given up for adoption specifically was what?
Ta-da! My hair wouldn't curl. They saw that. So that's really what it was.
That's the thing. I was born with naturally curly hair.
What?
Yeah, I know. Very curly.
But you're lucky because I know they were just going to, this is not. But you can straighten yours. So you're.
That's true, but you can curl your hair.
No, it will not. It's
Stop
people
it.
have made it a mission, like hairstylists, and like, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. And they do. And then they curl it. And they go to the other side and it's straight. So they put a lot of hairspray in it. And then I'm like a walking fire hazard.
Yeah, that is an issue.
So
but girl, you got to get like a Dyson Airwrap. Have you used those?
No, I have the hair dryer from Dyson.
No, this is the Airwrap.
Wait, so is it natural curly then, or is it?
My hair's naturally curly. Okay, don't try me on that. All right, this is natural lusciousness. But if you can get Dyson Airwrap, you just wrap it up, boom, and then it'll be curly beautiful. I'm gonna get you hooked up with this. Watch, we can fix this little problem. Okay. The leg thing I can't fix, but the hair thing that's easy. That one's an easy one.
That's fixable.
Yeah, exactly. So.
But yeah, it was my birth defects. My hands were all webbed. Which that should have been my sign. I should have been a swimmer because I had 6 toes too. So
wait, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
which
crazy.
Is not affected by radiation. 6 toes.
Wait,
it's hereditary from like your parents. Your parents will have it, and it's like a passed down gene.
Oh, really?
So I'll have to ask one of my birth parents, like which one did it.
Are you still in touch with them?
No, I've never met them. I've never seen them.
You know nothing.
I know nothing about them. I connected my birth brothers. I found out.
Right.
Communicating with them through social media, but
and you know your birth siblings.
Yeah, I mean through like literally just Google Translate and talking. I've never met them in person.
Oh wow, so they weren't in the orphanage necessarily with you.
No, they were born healthy.
And how did you connect with them?
So when I was in 2015, I went back to Ukraine, but not to Kyiv. I didn't go to where I was born, and because it was the 88th anniversary, which is the American Disability Act, and it was the 25th year anniversary of that. And then in 2014-15, Russia was invading Ukraine. And so a lot of the military Ukrainian men and women were coming back injured. They don't have the resources that we do in America for prosthetics. So the U.S. Embassy of Kyiv invited me over there to kind of do that and then go through some orphanages and see them and show how powerful adoption can be, because they're trying to pretend like it doesn't happen and kids are not being given up for adoption there.
Yeah, of course. And so I don't like to say defects. I feel like that's kind of derogatory. But like, what were the what's a good word for it? You tell me.
I just say birth defects. I don't know. It's not a defect, but it's like.
What were the
just physical difference? I don't know. There's
differences.
Really
let's go with that. What were the differences you were born with?
Yeah.
That because now you've had certain surgeries and operations to change some of those things and sort of mitigate some of the problems. What were the things that you were born with?
So I was born with my legs, and what all caused it, like the backstory to it, was I was born. Chernobyl happened 3 years before I was born. And what a lot of people don't realize is the radiation levels there are still to this day higher than it was when it first leaked. It just rises. And that land is so toxic still. Even in this current war that Russia is started in Ukraine, and those guys were going back to Russia sick because they were in the Chernobyl area.
The radiation is higher now than
Still,
it was.
it's rising.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's gonna take hundreds of years for it to go down. So.
And where was your family in relation to the incident? Like, how far? About
48 kilometers, but they don't know so, and it kind of is all intertwined, and it's so complicated. We found out it was radiation when my mom adopted me at 7.5, and I went to my first dentist, and I had radiation when they took the x-rays in my grown teeth. And so they were like, oh, it's radiation induced, because when you have birth defects or born with differences, physical differences, a lot of times it's localized. So it'll just be your legs are impaired, or your arms, or maybe one or the other, but it will be the same type of born without a leg, same type of a birth difference.
Right.
And I was born with my legs, and I was missing the weight bearing bone on both of them. My knee was kind of floating. My left one had a little short, it was 7 inches shorter and was arced in a C. So I slept with it every night holding on. I was really flexible.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And then I had 6 toes.
Wait, your leg you would hold on to your leg?
Well, it's so short. It was super short, and it was arced in a C. So it was what I bonded to.
Like an airplane pillow?
If you just, I don't know, picture what is it, the movie Scream, from that creepy looking dude or whatever.
Whoa.
Or with a scary movie, not Scream, scary movie. Yeah, I was that person. But so it was just a lot. And they're really, and then my hands, and
you said that they were webbed.
They were webbed and just didn't, and then so now I had double joints of all the, and then also my hands, so I have this joint, 1, 2, but I don't have the third one that you do. Right. I just have 2, but they were double.
That third one's overrated. You don't even need that one. You're not missing out, I promise.
When they say size matters and the length matters, it does in that moment, okay? It really does.
That's fair.
And legs too.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. But, so they didn't even know at that time the internal things, where my organs and the muscles, because I was missing I have 1 kidney, I was missing parts of my stomach. And this is all things we learned when my mom took me to these doctors.
You didn't even know this for the first 7 years of your life.
I didn't know it was different. It was until I came to America I found out, because
that you're actually better than everyone.
Yeah, that I sounded really weird, not looked weird. I sounded really weird with my accent.
That's crazy. So growing up in the orphanage, you still have very present memories of that time.
Yeah.
That's
the
wild.
last orphanage. The other ones I don't, because I moved around and lived in 3. But it's the one that from 5 to 16, you're considered an adult. Oh, right. And that's the one I really remember, and it was the last year is really what I remember. Right. Because I was about to turn 8, and it's weird how the smells and the sounds, and it could just re-trigger. It's in your body. It's crazy, right? Especially I think they say that smell is the most, triggering memory sense. Yeah. You can smell things and then just immediately remember things. Yeah. What are those smells for you that you smell and you're like? Dill. Dillweed, pickles. Really? Because why? That was just a really common food? I didn't even get it. I don't know why, but I smelt it in the orphanage. It was always there. Because my orphanage the last one was the other wing was an orphanage, but then it was a boarding school, but not boarding school we think of a posh type one. Right. In the UK or anywhere. And those kids, basically their parents paid money to the government, and so they would just go and live there and get room and food, and then would go home on vacations or things like that. Oh, I see. So they just was a way to help when they couldn't provide for them either, but they had a home. And were there resources at this orphanage? Was it for them? Yeah. But for you? Yeah. Not so much? Not like that. Right. No, because we did get to eat, and maybe this is why. My mom also said, I smelled dill for the first few months because it was in my pores. It was just cooked all the time in the food and stuff. Is that a Ukrainian thing, or is that just specifically at this? I think orphanage? It's a very Slavic thing. It is Ukrainian thing, and I do love pickles. That is my still. I love pickles. So you don't necessarily do have a negative. And the juice, pickle juice too. Right. Oh my goodness. You and my wife would get along so well. She's just sometimes she'll hit me up and go literally late at night, and she'll be like, I need you to go to the corner store. I need you to get a pickle.
And I was like, is this an innuendo? She's like, no, I just literally need a
The craving calls for a pickle, nothing will suffice at all.
I'll come home at like 2 a.m. She goes, wake me up. I need a night pickle. And then it's literally, I'll chop up a pickle and she'll just have a bite and go back to sleep. It's bizarre. Is this like, I don't understand what's happening.
She Ukrainian?
She wasn't even in an orphanage. I don't know what's going on. She just loves dill pickles. But yeah, it's a weird thing how it can like trigger those senses. But for that specifically, you don't have negative connotation with that.
Not with that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And there's good memories and bad memories. And not like, it's not like it was hell 24/7.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah.
But were you constantly, it probably is difficult to remember, especially when you're 7. I don't even remember what I know when I was 7. But were you thinking like, oh, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to get adopted? Or did you just think you were going to age out? Did you have a lot of like cognitive thought about that?
Well, I knew I wanted a mom because I saw kids that were, so they would all put us around for when there were potential parents that were interested in adopting. And that's when we got to eat. And that's where we got to like actually like have a dress on, and they always flop a bow on your head.
Oh, really? They like dress you up for like the day? The day.
And so you associate like, oh, okay, so we have to put our best, like we have to look cute and be the chosen one. And so I watched a lot of kids walk, like I knew what a mom was. I was very aware of that because sometimes there was like harsh conditions there, and sometimes when they were really physical, I would go into some of the caretakers would take me home, and so for a night or two to really heal, and then would come back to the orphanage. And that is, those small little moments is where I felt love that and warmth. Like mom.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know why I knew the word mom like in Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Not in English, but and that's all I wanted, and I was very aware of that.
Do they explain things to the children like, oh, do they explain why you're in an orphanage? Do they explain what the context of this is? Like, because it's a bizarre thing to think that you were just growing up in an environment and without being told what's happening, you might not know like, oh, this is what a family is supposed to be. Yeah. This is what grandparents are. Like, this is what traditions are that people do in their families. So how was that explained to you? And like, how did you learn those things? It
wasn't explained. It's just feelings. You just, like, I associate it with, I feel safe here. And so this is what I want. And new mom, because some of the kids were like, oh, I'm going to get a mom. And then the orphanage, the director of the orphanage or the caretakers would say like, well, this is why you don't have a mom, because you either look like this or you're a bad girl, and they know this.
They would say that?
Yeah. And so like you kind of learn, okay. But that never worked on me. I still got in trouble. I never learned. That's why it took 7.5 years.
Wait, were you getting in trouble in the orphanage?
Yeah.
Like what?
I was just going in places I was not supposed to be going and sneaking out trying to get food because we were so hungry all the time, and climbing bookshelves all the time, and just like...
Oh, you were just a wild child.
Yeah. It was like, but you were like fend for yourself.
You were active like from the jump. You just liked being active and like doing things.
I loved moving my body and just being physical.
Right. And even at that time, so at that time, this is pre-surgery. So you still had one leg that was sort of like bent, I guess. But
yeah, so it was like straight, but it was like arced in like a little half crescent moon. Were you able to walk? So yeah, so I didn't have the weight bearing bone, and I didn't pay attention in like anatomy class. So I don't really know if it's a tibia or the fibia. I think it's a tibia is the main weight bearing bone.
Right.
And the other one looked like a salt shaker. It was just sprinkled all over. So it wasn't really a fully formed bone. So, and then my ankles were fused up. So I walked on tippy toes with my 6 toes.
Right.
And I did have 7 surgeries in Ukraine. And one of them included removing the 6th toe and doing the webbing. But I totally just lost my train of thought, actually.
Getting the surgeries and being able to walk in the orphanage.
Yeah, it's like I taught myself how to walk, because in theory I shouldn't have been able to walk.
That's the thing I don't understand. Like all these impairments, but still you're just like, I'm gonna go climb a bookshelf.
Because I think it's like, this is the thing, like society now sees me as like, oh, she has no legs, and just because they can't imagine it. So they're like, well, how do you do this? How do you, what? You can go up the stairs. You can, oh my gosh, you can go to the bathroom by yourself. And that's just fun ones like, oh, do you sleep in your legs and stuff? And it's like, no, I don't sleep in my legs. Are you kidding me? But so like, they don't see it. And it's really, really hard in that aspect of it.
Right. And so you were kind of like wild in the orphanage. Did you have friends that you still remember now that like, oh, we would do these things together. We were just like crazy. And or like we would do these games, or like we would get into trouble in these ways. Like, were there any fond memories like that with any of the people?
Yes, like so I had a really, really good close friend there. And then I had really two close relationships with two of the little boys there too.
Yeah.
And we were like the three musketeers, and just like, we were the smallest one. I was the smallest one, so I got a lot of piggyback rides, but we kind of like, I don't want to say like ran that orphanage, but we kind of did amongst the kids. But yeah, it was just kid stuff, just being so curious and just getting in trouble and doing things. And I think I was that one that would always take it too far, and like they try to talk me like, Oksana, let's like don't do this, and then nothing good happens from it, and then all of a sudden nothing good happened from it, and then I would be gone for a little bit and then would come back.
Right.
And I think for me it was that's when I felt seen, is when I was getting in trouble. And so I also love pushing buttons and sitting back and watching. I just didn't do a good job with not getting caught. So I got caught.
That's funny.
But
yeah, like you would push buttons, and then instead of running away and seeing, you would just stay right there and be like, I push these buttons. That's very interesting. So like, I guess at that time, maybe you were overlooked, or you felt overlooked. And then you were like, oh, if I act out, I can get some attention. I can get some acknowledgement, things like that.
Classic, like,
I mean, look.
no attention, or some attention's better than
I'm the youngest of almost 7 kids. Second youngest. Yeah, no, my parents had 7 kids. I have 1 younger sister, so I'm 6 of 7.
Oh my gosh.
So I understand.
Wait, and you're the younger one?
I have 1 younger sister, so I'm number 6. Yeah. So I understand that feeling of like, oh, I'm gonna act out. We're gonna get some attention going here. Because I just felt like, I remember that feeling, kind of just being like, oh yeah, I don't know if what I say matters that much.
Were you guys all close in age?
I mean, everyone's like 3 years apart, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. It was.
So it's similar. You totally get that.
It's kind of like an orphanage when you think about it.
Totally. Yeah. Your parents totally basically created this orphanage, homey environment
just
for you.
A bunch of kids running around. Parents were somewhere.
That's funny you say 7, because that was only just 7 orphans. So maybe.
Oh. Yeah. Wait. How many were at the orphanage you were at?
7.
That was it?
7. Yeah.
Oh wow. So everyone was probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we were each other's family. And I think earlier when you were asking, like, were you aware of family? Were you aware of grandparents and the traditions, all that? Mm-hmm. I think we didn't know that's what it was. There wasn't a name to it.
Right.
Only thing I knew was mom and what my body felt.
Right.
Being in that. And we were each other's family. And now looking back is what it was.
So once a kid got adopted, did they bring another child in?
No, it just it would stay pretty small, and it sometimes there would be, but not really.
Did you ever see a kid get adopted and you're like,
yeah.
Really? That kid?
Yeah.
You're like, that kid sucks.
Yeah. Because I got the junky, like, crappy bow, or they got the better one. It's not because I looked bad or anything.
That's so funny that you're just literally looking at them being like, if I got that better, the marketing on me needs to be a little better.
Yeah,
give me
it needs
the bow.
to be.
give me something, a better outfit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe I should have laid off the dill. I don't know.
Yeah, they were like, she smells too much like pickles. Actually. That's so crazy.
And that's I remember 2 specific families that told me, like, we're going to come and adopt you, we're going to bring you home, and they never come back. So it's just such a normal, like, you don't know anything except that's your normal, so you get very immune and not to expect anything. Right. The only thing I got really excited is, we're gonna eat.
Right. Yeah, because it's gonna be the big day. We're all gonna dress up. I mean, that's like such a challenging thing, because I don't know how else do you think you can restructure that to where you're not giving this false hope to a bunch of Ukrainian orphans? You know what I mean? Like, if you're someone that wants to adopt children, is there a way that you can structure the adoption process to where there's not like this false sense of hope, like, oh, I might make it out of here?
I think it's what happens in the US. There's the foster care system, and so like you create this, like, but I think it's impossible to create that false hope too, because people will change their mind or will find something out. I don't know what the reasoning is, and I think it's just, instead of those people, I think we just need to create better environments that it feels like home, and that they are seen and they are heard and they're protected, and not have to struggle once they do all of a sudden experience that, if they're lucky enough to experience it.
Yeah, of course.
And the transition was the hardest on that end.
And are you in school the whole time? Like, you're learning? And
we were in school, but I literally, like, it was like 30 minutes to an hour a day. And when the teacher would they kind of babysat in a way. And so we did like, because I could do 3 like digit at math. I was really good, and I don't know what happened when I came to America, but I went blind and couldn't do math.
Wait, really?
Instantly. Yeah, I have LASIK now, but like I literally could do like, I saw 20/20, and then like I don't know if it was the water or really good nutrition. I don't know. My body was rejecting it.
Yeah, no, as soon as it was like no more radiation, your body was like, no. That's what I'm saying. You might be a superhuman.
No, I don't have that. I'm not like Bruce.
You never tried?
Whatever his name is from Hulk.
Be honest, you never just try to like lift something with your brain?
You know, I never did that. I just tried to see once I learned what radiation was, like if I glowed.
That's what I'm saying. You might have something in there. Like you got to do meditation, see if you can start doing something.
Maybe these will grow back. These will grow back.
So then what happens the day when you find out, oh, someone is going to come adopt you? What is that process like? When my mom came, exactly.
or
When
the
your mom
day
came.
that someone says they will and then wouldn't?
No, when your mom came.
Well, so my mom, she saw a picture of me. I never met her. She never went to Ukraine, to the orphanage I was in, and picked me based on my amazing bow and my amazing presence. She saw a disgusting black and white picture that literally looked like something from like The Grudge or like The Ring, the girl crawling out of the ring. Like it's black and white, and I'm extremely malnourished, and I'm really now I joke about her. I'm like, Mom, you just like broken things, because and then we joke like how like maybe like she got me from like a bargain cave on the side of the orphanage because it was 50% off, because like you don't want her, don't worry. And because like she's amazing though, because she's like the kind of person, like we had to put our dog down, and she adopts another dog, and she adopts a 10-year-old blind dog, and that's the kind of person. So that's why I was saying like she likes broken things.
That's just so. See, this is the other thing I love. Like we spoke with. Are you familiar with Yeonmi Park? Mm-mm. She's a defector from North Korea, and lived in terrible conditions, and was malnourished, and escaped with her mom, and was sold, and like just had this like traumatic, terrible but triumphant story. And she has a very similar sense of humor to you. She's like, she'll just go for it. Like she's not exactly easily offended. Like she's just like really funny and silly. And I'm curious, do you think that having a bit of like a difficult childhood adds to that comedic sensibility? Like do you find yourself being offended by things?
No, not really. Not by like things like that. It's more offended by like ignorant comments that are just like, oh my gosh. And then I'm just like, well, I'm gonna show you. But I think everyone in this world just needs to learn how to laugh at themselves, and it's okay. Like I'll make comments about my legs, and someone's like, oh, do we laugh? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. You probably horrify people, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll just come in and you'll just be like,
fine.
Let's go eat. I want to go to IHOP. And everyone's like, whoa.
Oh my God, I'm going to have to use that. I never did that one before.
There's going to be way more of these throughout the episode, okay? So you can just have them, all right?
But like I say, like people with like below the knee amputees or single leg amputees, it's like a paper cut or like an ingrown hair. It's not that big of a deal. And then they're like, do I laugh? What do I do? And it's like, dude, like, we all think about it. This is how we talk about it. Like,
that's so funny.
It's totally fine.
Oh, so you make fun of other amputees. You're like,
yeah. Oh God, yeah. That's like a Lamborghini Cadillac they're riding.
You're like, if I had that femur, what I would do with that?
Yes.
I'd be in the NBA.
Well, just the knee. That's what I'm like. Once again, the size matters. Like it does. Just the length of the knee.
Yeah, you don't think about that knee. Like just being above or below the knee, that makes a huge difference.
Massive difference. I'll never get that little knee pop kiss moment as a girl, because I know that's what you were thinking of instantly.
Wait, the knee pop where you go like,
yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Like Princess Diaries.
Yeah.
You ever saw the movie?
Yeah. But it was a long time ago.
That's where she gets the kiss and she's in the garden.
Oh yeah, it's like a slow motion knee pop, and then she goes boop.
And then it hits all the lights and everything turns on. That's an awesome movie, by the way.
It is a good movie. I need to watch that again. That's been a long time since I've seen it.
No, it's a good one. Rewatch it. I thought that country, Genovia, was a real country forever. Literally until I was like 16, I was like, what's the capital of Genovia? And I realized I was like, I just learned this in a movie and it's not a real place.
It's not real.
My bad. So
cool. I knew that. I was just making sure you guys knew that.
Yeah. Did you know that? I actually don't think you knew that. So then, I'm interested with your mom. So you basically get it, like the people working there come and tell you, and they're like, hey, some lady got our fax and she's gonna like come get you. Like, what is that day like? Do you remember that vividly?
That day was, but it didn't happen until 2 years later is when I met her. And the difference this time, so she never came to the orphanage. She just saw a picture and she tried to get me right around my 5th birthday, and Ukraine put a moratorium on all foreign adoptions, which is a ban. And then the US also had its own like bans on adoption stuff. Political stuff has always gotten away. And she never stopped fighting for me, even though during that time she wanted a baby. She didn't want a 5-year-old. She didn't want a 7-year-old that she ended up with. And during that 2 years, she didn't realize I actually knew of her. She thought, thank God they never told her and she doesn't know I'm coming, because if she thought I was coming last year, and she's probably wondering, where is she? But I did know of her. I knew of her. I knew her name, and I asked the director of that orphanage if I could look at her picture. And so I did that, and that was my reward for being good. And it was just her passport picture that they sent over.
Which no one ever looks good in their passport picture.
But she did.
Really?
In a weird way. I don't know. It kind of makes you angry that she did.
Yeah,
and now, because you're like you said, no one does.
Yeah, of course. If this is a movie and they show like some beautiful woman, you'd be like, that's not real. Like, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But she actually was just killing it in the pic.
She was crushing it, but I think like she just, in her picture, she had this short curly hair and glasses and rosy cheeks and just this honest smile in her eyes. And just one of those things that she's like, I felt like I was like connecting with her eyes, and we were just talking. And so I looked, when they would allow me, I looked at her picture and memorized her face, from her hair, top of her hair, and just like her eyebrow line, her eyes, and her smile, and just daydreamed about our life together. And then there were days where they'd use it against you and like, well, no, you're not going to look, and this is why she's not coming, because she sees that you're being a bad girl and she doesn't want you because of that. After that 2 years, you're like, start to wonder. But then I never really, like I said, learned from any of that. So I just continued to be bad.
Yeah, of course. But like, that's just so fucked up. So like, like they were treating your mom like Santa. Like they're just like.
Saint Nicholas is the one I knew, because it wasn't Santa. It was like Saint Nicholas.
Wait, they would actually say that?
Yeah. They do not call her Saint Nicholas, but like instead of Santa.
Do Saint Nicholas to come for Christmas and stuff like that.
But.
Wow. And then, but she eventually shows up.
And then she shows up, and that night, she was supposed to come during the day, and then I don't know, whatever, she said she had travel issues now that we talk about it, but I didn't know why she wasn't coming. And I threw the biggest hissy fit, because I thought if I went to sleep, because now it's nighttime and she's not there, and I was told she's going to come, and they're like, we'll wake you up when she comes, but like, not to trust anything there.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah. And so I just threw the biggest hissy fit. I'm like, I'm not going to sleep, because I thought if I close my eyes, like, she will not come.
Yeah.
And she did. I felt that night, in the middle of the night, I felt this weird like pressure on the bed, and woke up. They let me, because to get me to go to sleep, they let me bring her picture to my bedside stand, which is very rare. I don't know why he just decided to be so nice that day. But and then they wake me up. There's my mom, my Aunt Sherry that came with her, and then the translator and the director of the orphanage and one of the caretakers all around the bed. And they said in Ukrainian, like, Oksana, do you know who this is? And I look at all of them, and I look at my mom who's kneeling down, and I said, I know you. You're my mom. I have your picture. And I went to my bedside and like showed her the picture, like this, as if I'm claiming her, saying, this is you. You're mine. You're not going anywhere.
You adopted your mom.
Yeah, basically. So that's true. I never thought of that.
Yeah, you're like, you're my mom.
And then my mom was like, yeah, and I know you. You're my daughter. And that we said that through the translation, and that's our first words. And then she gave me a stuffed animal that looks like a Dumbo stuffed elephant that her mom actually made for all 3 of her kids to give to their kids. And she made one for my mom. And even though my mom adopted me single parent, she never was married. The only thing she knew is she wanted kids. She wasn't really set on, I need the whole picture perfect marriage, kids, everything. And then she gave that, and I took it. I had no idea what it was, but I loved it. And it was the first toy I had. It's the first anything soft I had. And then I just went to sleep, and like with a smile on my face, and just couldn't believe, like, I couldn't believe it, and I could believe it. Like I knew it was different this time. Like looking at her picture and just.
Did you feel the warmth? Like once you guys met, was it like instant?
Instantly.
It was instant.
Instant safeness, if that's even a word.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing. It makes me wonder how humans, like our brains, can adapt and like intuit warmth and safety and comfort, and that you were in like a fight or flight situation for so long, and like an orphanage is just like such a tough situation, obviously, but like because it's almost, I don't know, I don't want to compare it to like a prison. But as a kid, there's no real warmth, and there's just like routine sort of arbitrarily decided. Yeah. And then automatically you're just put into this extremely kind, loving environment with a woman that like really fought to be with you. Yeah. And
I didn't even know the extent of the fight she was going through.
Right, of course. Yeah. You have, and so immediately you just kind of like pack up your like few things that you had at that point. And
no, are you kidding? Mark, I had to give my underwear back, and everything on my body I had to give back.
Really?
Yeah.
And so she brings clothes for you?
Yeah.
And then, wow.
And that's when I realized my mom has no style.
What did she put you with? Be honest.
Like she's mixing like checkered and like stripes together with different colors. And I love my mom, but I also know like I know my place. I'm not like a rocket scientist. I'm not like this smart, incredible like lawyer. So no, I'm not gonna. That's why I'm an athlete. I know I'll do this. My mom's not. Her place really. She's got a unique style.
She's a professor. She's an academic.
Professor. Yeah.
This is someone that, you know, is very academic, very studious.
Yeah.
Maybe not a fashionista. You know? That's not crazy, right?
Yeah. Right?
I mean, this is my favorite thing too, because like you were adopted, you lived in America a long time, but you're still Ukrainian at your heart. Because I know Eastern Europeans love nice clothes, love a nice bag, and that's still in you.
Yeah. And of course, the girl with no legs is the one that's obsessed with heels and shoes and limit. It's like so mean. It's like, you want this? You want this? Can't have it. It's like, and that's what I feel like when I see like the nice, like perfect pair of heels, because it makes a difference. Like heels, the
I asked you
shoes.
this before, side tangent. You can choose your shoe size.
Yes.
Which
I can. The only thing is if I go bigger, it's a longer foot. So it's harder to clear it when you're taking a step.
Oh, I guess.
So there's like a give and take for everything.
And if your brain is sort of used to like, oh, this is what the clearance is for this foot, you add an extra quarter of an inch, you're going to bump into stuff. But if you see a sick pair of shoes that you like,
I will shove my foot or cut the rubber, whatever I need to do.
That's what I'm saying, because they don't have to be comfy. You know what I mean? Like you can go up and down half a size.
Yeah.
So you get the perfect pair of shoes, you're like, I'm wearing these.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of convenient.
That is convenient. There's so many convenient things about it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
As long as it's 2 inches.
We always hear about the bad parts. I'm just saying, you get to throw on a heel. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Or like, there's an exclusive pair of sneakers. You're a sneakerhead. I don't know if we clarified that before.
And I'm so happy that like this leisure wear or whatever the style is finally in, and like it's cool to wear sneakers with dresses, because that was me. I was doing it. I just want to say, like, I was doing that way before it was a thing.
You're still a hipster about it. You're like, look, I was in the orphanage. We weren't allowed to wear heels, but I was doing it before everyone. Okay, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so you show up in America. You get on the plane with your mom. Can you even speak English at this point?
No. So my mom speaks no Ukrainian, and I speak no English.
And so you guys are talking through
charades. Playing charades. And she did learn, before she came, she learned some Ukrainian words and stuff. And the crazy thing is, so like in Ukraine, when they found out an American woman was going to get me, they're like, oh, we have to make her seem smart. Like our kids are really, really smart. Ukrainians are smart. So they taught me how to say one word, which is a baby doll. But they forgot to teach me what a baby doll was, because I've never seen one and I had no idea. And so they said, oh, she's a smart girl. She knows baby doll. And they told that before she came. So my mom brings me a baby doll thinking I know what this is and I know some English. And there's this picture where I'm just like, she gives me this doll and I'm like looking at it, like, what do I do with? Like, I don't know what this is.
You've never seen a baby doll before?
No, we didn't have toys. She sent a care package of toys and for my birthday, and the one that they put up on the shelf just to look at. But it was for everyone. It wasn't for my birthday, 6th birthday, and to play with.
But no, they weren't just for everyone to look at.
Yeah, you just look at it, and then they put it up somewhere else. They took everything else. She sent some coloring stuff.
That's how they let you play with the toys, just like a museum.
But just that one.
What is like? This feels mean. Like,
some can say that.
am I misunderstanding something? Like, it seems like they're being intentionally. Was there just no money? Like, why?
Yeah, there's no money. In the orphanages, there's local ones, and then there's government-ran ones. Mm-hmm. And what I found out later on, for every year, a child, whether you relinquish them at birth, and that's what happened to my birth parents, they were forced to relinquish me. And so I've learned, that's how I actually got my name, because my mom, she's like, well, if I can't be your mom, I want to give you my name. And that's how I learned I got my name. Back to like what we were talking about, all this whole like birth parents and stuff. But like when you're relinquished, and then even though you have no rights anymore and that child's not yours, you send money into that government ran one, because in theory they have a bed, they're getting food, they're going to school, they have clothes, and they're raising you. Mm-hmm. But why? Because they're not your child either. So it's so weird. And that's like, to paint the picture of what I remember, in the last one, when the day my mom came, it was so cold. It was during the winter. The heat was not existent ever. And the pipes, the radiators on the side of the wall bursted, and there were women there on their hands and knees chipping away the ice that froze on the floor of that hallway. And that's how cold it was. And just really, really dark. It'd be interesting to see it now, but it's so dark, and a lot of cement walls, which everyone like, cement's really in right now, especially in Europe. And I'm like, oh God, this is freaking me out right now.
You go into a Chipotle, you're like, ugh.
No, I'm like, this is not cool.
Yeah, like industrial chic. You're like, no, thank you.
Which I guess it is now. I'm getting to it. But it's hard to like rewire your brain not to associate it in that place.
I mean, how could you? I mean, it's like insane. I guess I am so disassociated or detached from how difficult the conditions truly can be. Because I guess Ukraine at the time was probably even poorer. It was poorer than it is now, right? Like at that time, this is at the dissolution of the Soviet Union, so it's at a much worse place. Yeah. And so really no money. And you were at the government ran orphanage.
Yes, government ran. And when I say government ran, a lot of shady shit happened there. And that would not really go anywhere else. And my mom got a sense of it when she was there. And she asked like, oh, can we go upstairs? And they just like walked in front of her and said no. And then she got this weird gut feeling like, what? And because there were a lot of bad things that were happening to us, and sometimes the punishment would be upstairs and like what was happening. And then like medical care too, I was the smallest one. They reuse needles too. So when you get a shot, you go down from all the kids there, not just the 7, but all of them. And I was the smallest and a girl. So I got like this crazy gnarly scar because the needle gets so dull every time you reuse a needle that you just have to like smash it in. And it's just lack of resources, lack of care, lack of anything, because the caretakers are also getting paid nothing to care for them too. So it's like, and there's bad eggs everywhere.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's just like the idea that they're using. It's like difficult to fathom that that's happening in an orphanage. Like, this is, I don't know. The story again reminds me of Yeonmi Park, where she's in like this dictatorship, this like authoritarian regime. But you are not even in a dictatorship. This is just happening because of, I guess, it seems too malicious to just be happening because of lack of resources, I guess.
I think it's because like I didn't know at that time, but I was a disabled kid. Like,
and you have no reference of what's normal. You're like, I guess I'm the last one to use the needle. Like, you don't have a reference.
Okay, maybe I talk too much. I don't know.
I mean, that's so bizarre. But I mean, that's tragic.
But you also, it's like, I'm sure like her, like she didn't know any different. That was her normal life. And so when I did come to America and had all that, the hardest thing was getting comfortable with being safe. And like, this chair is nice. I did not like it when I was a kid, though. It would have been too nice. And so I slept on the floor because that's what I was more familiar. My body, the feeling, nobody was hurting me anymore before I went to bed. So like, it was hard to go to sleep without that because that wasn't normal. And that transition was really, really tough.
Do you think you have a different capacity for pain? like either physical or mental? Like
I think
obviously,
I have
like we can discuss this more when we're talking about obviously your Olympic achievements, but I'm curious if obviously, I mean, I know this has been spoken about with like sports psychologists that like traumatic childhoods often lead to really great athletes and people that are able to achieve things in a lot of different fields. I'm curious if the desire to sleep on the floor shows like a propensity and a threshold for what you're able to endure physically and mentally. I'm curious, like if you're in the middle of a workout, or you're in the middle of a, you're rowing or skiing or something, if you get to the end and you're like, oh, my threshold for what I'm able to endure, the depth of your pain cave is so much deeper than, a kid that grew up in Manhattan that slept in a, silk sheets his whole life.
I don't know. Silk sheets can sometimes have their own downside too. So I
mean,
know.
Of course, but like it's a weird thing. I've heard this quote before where the worst thing that can happen to a human, there's the two worst things that can happen to a human is either you don't get anything that you want or you get everything you ever wish for. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious now that you're no longer in like these, tragic, traumatic conditions. If you think about those times and you're like, wow, I have an advantage mentally to endure things. It just seems, I don't know, just coming home and sleeping on the floor, just it's an indication.
Well, it was nice. Like I was like, oh, this is home. this is, and then it took a while, but I think it's like, I don't know. Like I have this mixed feeling about people who say their pain cave and their tolerance and their threshold's higher. I think it's a mindset. I don't think it's like a physical thing. It's a mindset. And the way I looked at pain, I dissect because so I've really learned how to dissect every part of pain on my body and really pay attention to it and I also, on top of that, you got beat up if you showed any form of emotion, if it was happiness or if it was sadness. If you were in pain and you wanted to cry, don't cry because it's just going to get bad.
Oh, wow.
So I internalized a lot and really learned what this pain is, what's going to come next. And it became normal. And my perspective of that now as an athlete is it makes me feel alive. The difference as an athlete is I am pushing my body here and I feel so alive. I'm doing this to me. I'm in control and I'm familiar with this kind of pain. And so it's totally a mindset. And that I never think of like, oh, I have a bigger pain tolerance than you. Because I don't.
Right. But the fact that there are so many things outside of your control, I can't control, my legs, and or I can't control that I wasn't born with legs, or I can't control, the joints in my fingers, but I can control how hard I go in this workout, or I can control how quickly I'm rowing or whatever. It really does give you a sense of autonomy. Like I'm in control of these muscles that I wonder, do you feel like you have more physical awareness?
Yes.
Like in terms of, it's an interesting thing. I've been thinking about this a lot, like am meditating more now and like trying to have like more presence and things like that. Yeah, mindfulness, exactly. But I'm becoming aware of my body in a way that I was never aware of before. I think at least in the West or maybe in, more modernized countries, people just kind of lose touch with their bodies, I think, in a way. Yeah. But because of, the way that you were born, I wonder if you have a greater sense of your body and you're much more in tune and able to listen to it.
Yeah, I think that I definitely do. And because I think it's not just me. I think it's anyone born with like any physical difference too, because we're more aware of how you move your body. Your body is where it is in space. And earlier I got totally distracted because you're saying like, well, how did you teach yourself how to walk and all this stuff? But then it's like, if you think about, so now you're becoming more mindful of small things you never knew. And then if you think about, if you break a leg or break your arm, if you just take your like mind away from it, your body will adapt on the fly. If you want to get this coffee, you'll find a way to drink this coffee somehow. It's just the mind. And that's totally like.
This is what I mean though, when it comes to like mental fortitude. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like ascribe things to you, but I do think that you might have a greater capacity for mental fortuitousness because
I'm half a person, so I have to.
That's what I'm saying. But like, you just been like, again, I don't know. Like you hear these stories of people that like, the guy that got his arm stuck in the rock and cut it off.
I don't know if
like,
I could do that.
But he put his brain, but I think the fact that you taught yourself how to walk or you overcame these things is kind of proof to me that if you put specific humans in specific situations, their brains can overcome and just force and will themselves to survive.
Yeah. I think it's not just Pacific humans. I think we're all capable of it. People don't realize it. We're all resilient. We're all capable of it. It's the only limiting factor is how much we want to feed into our thoughts and which way you want to feed those thoughts.
Yeah, of course. Did you start going to school the second you got to the US, or like what was that transition process?
Well, I was a dummy and I decided to do that because in Ukraine my school wasn't really school. I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm like, I'm ready to go to school. My mom was going to take like this leave for not pregnancy but child leave.
Yeah, of course.
And she was going to do that for a year because to make sure I could speak English and just know what a family is and bond to her and make that connection. But I was ready to go to school because I thought it was going to be like that. I missed being around people until I realized, wow, school in America is very different. It's like for 30 hours, it felt like. It's really like 8 or whatever. But
what grade are you put into?
So I was technically graduated from like 3rd grade or in 3rd grade in Ukraine. But because I didn't speak any English, I went to 1st grade. And so I was like that older one. So I was the older one when I had the card and my friends didn't.
Oh,
so
really?
That was cool.
That's kind of nice.
But not when but then like I had a translator and I was really, really mad because she spoke Russian. She didn't speak Ukrainian at all. And they promised that. And it's weird. This is the one thing I don't know. And I'm kind of curious the part that I lived, like why as a child was I so mad and aware that she was speaking Russian and not Ukrainian. And that was just because I was on the central Western, that it was considered the gateway from the west to the east of Ukraine.
Right.
And there are parts where, I mean, they just don't speak that language. But yeah, so I was really excited to go to school.
Was there any idea or notion of like Russia, Ukraine in terms of geopolitics or like national relationship? Or was it just the fact that she wasn't speaking the exact language and dialect that I know? I
think it was just simple as that.
Right. And how different are the languages, Ukrainian and Russian?
They're like, there's like niet and ni. Like, so that's like no. Like one way is Russian style, and then there's like ni, which is like Ukrainian style, and
but it's just not the thing that you're used to.
It's like the southern, and you go to California and like SoCal, and it's like oh my god, and then you go to like here, you're not gonna hear it. So it's like dialect like that terminology.
But it still frustrated you as a kid. You're like, wow.
It did. I don't know why. I was very territorial and possessive, I guess. I don't know.
I asked you this before. Alcohol affects you differently.
It does.
You get drunk quicker.
Yeah, so we have the same pour, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know. Like, because it goes through your whole bloodstream. Yeah. But you have less blood.
Exactly. So it hits me much faster, and I definitely get drunk way faster. So I definitely am like
saving a lot of money.
Save a lot of money. I'm a cheap date. Like
literally,
it's nice.
You could do a half a beer, and I think you're.
Yeah. Do I stop at half a beer? No, I don't though. Well, don't know when to stop.
You're supposed to stop at half a beer, but you go a full beer. Now we're partying. Now we're going crazy. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially stouts.
A stout?
Yeah.
A good stout? Like there's you ever do nitros?
Yes. Oh yes.
Great. I'm like an IPA guy. I know I look like it, but I do like an IPA.
I don't like IPAs.
Really?
35 is like my cutoff for the number. Like I can't.
Really?
Unless it's like the Dogfish, like 90-minute IPA, I can do that one.
Yeah. No, those are great. The thing I was asking you before, you grew up in a house, you don't have any concept of family, really, but then now you're growing up with a mother that you're stoked about, but no dad.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw movies where there was a mom and a dad. I'm sure you have an awareness of like men's role. Really?
No, and I actually hated Disney movies because they were all orphans or they lost the parent somehow too, and so like it was so stupid.
And you didn't like it for that reason?
No. I didn't like that it came because I was aware of that. I was aware I was not wanted. I was aware that it was just like, and it was weird. I don't know why, but no, I never really watched it in movies. And when I was younger, like I was watching Scooby-Doo, and I don't think they had fathers in that in that TV show.
No. I mean, Fred was kind of a daddy, but he wasn't like a father. Yeah. Like he was a handsome guy, but like I don't think he literally had children. But yeah, so did you ever ask your mom like, oh, where's is dad? No, is there a dad? Or it never even came up?
It actually really didn't, which is so weird to think about. All I wondered was, where's my mom? I want a mom. Even when there were 2 family members, like a mother, father that would come to the orphanage and look, it was always the mom. Like I didn't understand. I don't know why. And maybe it's because subconsciously, like it were the men that were doing really bad things upstairs. So I just didn't really think about and see that aspect of a parent. And to be honest, to this day, that father-daughter relationship is just such a foreign concept to me. Like, I don't get it.
Really?
And when they're like, oh, I'm a daddy's girl, or oh, my dad, and the whole walking down the aisle thing, and just like, I don't understand it.
Interesting. Did it affect your ability to have relationships with men? Obviously, you're engaged now.
Yeah.
But that, I obviously, I think your childhood more than anything, did it affect your ability to connect with men or like have like romantic relationships with men?
It did for like at a certain point, when especially when it got serious, and then I'm like, oh God, okay, this is real. So then I would self-sabotage all that a little bit.
Like the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if he's coming from a Western ideal, especially if you're in Kentucky, like this is like a very like Southern Christian place that people might be growing up with, like a very like Southern Christian mentality of relationships that can feel where like the guy's kind of like in charge. Yeah. And if you never really had guys in charge in that way, or didn't have
in a positive way,
in a positive way, then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know. And I don't know if it's because like my mom adopted me as single parent too. So it's not like she talked about a father, and it kind of got a little more like when I was dating, like, do I tell my mom? No, I won't tell my mom. Will she get mad that I'm dating and she's not dating? And those kind of thoughts kind of started creeping in my mind when I was in middle school, high school.
Oh, interesting.
But I really like, it's just such a weird concept to me. Like, I just don't get it. Right. But I love it because I want Aaron, my fiance, to be a dad. He's like a weirdo where I'm like, oh my God, I think he'd be so nice. And I want you to have a girl so you can just like have to do all her hair and do all those things. And he's just so, he's changing my mind. And I could see that father-daughter relationship that I never could.
Yeah, of course. It is sad to me that you think him being nice is weird.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of an indication of like what it must have been like growing up, that so many men were so awful that meeting a guy that's like really nice that would be like a good dad, you're like, what a freak. You know what I mean?
What
like,
a weirdo. Oh my God.
What's wrong with this guy? He's going to be like an awesome dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful. But he is going to be an awesome dad. That's the cool part.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm hopeful that, I mean, it's really crazy how love can patch up so many wounds. And that just seeing and being around positive influences and positive relationships that are loving. Yeah. Just can really heal traumas. And I'm sure you felt this with your mom.
And you don't have to speak the language of love either. Like, love doesn't have a language. And exactly. That's kind of like my mom and I relationship, like instant love, instant bond, instant.
Even without language.
But we didn't,
even without
you don't
culture.
need language to have, different cultures, different, you know, weird body, normal body, right. Curly hair, straight boy, coarse hair. Because like they kept it really short. That's why my hair, I'll never cut it. But love doesn't, that's cool. Like it has when you have the right kind of love, and that you're lucky enough to find it.
Yeah, of course. And do you remember the cultural barriers as you're starting to immerse? And it's not even cultural in terms of Ukrainian American, but also orphanage to just a family structure. What were some of the things that were happening that you're like, oh, this is what normal is supposed to be? Because you don't have any relationship with what normal is when you're in the orphanage until you're out of it in a more normal situation. Like, what were some of those things that were popping up that you were like,
well, it's more of what my mom was doing. But she's like, the concept of food was so strange. You can just walk into a store and it's just there. Like, what?
And you can get whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Was it
and
overwhelming?
Then you can't just like, go and eat it. You have to pay for it. I didn't understand that part of it. But
yeah, of course. Was it overwhelming, like the choices, the autonomy to be like, hey, what do you want to do? What sports do you want to play?
So my fiance calls it FOBO, fear of better options, because instead of fear of missing out or whatever, but because I'll like, if we order something, if I see a menu, I'm terrified. I'm like, act as if it's my last meal. I don't know, like, is this the right thing to get? Will I be happy with it? Like, but there's so many options. Or if I don't do this, and just like, did I miss out? And it's like, it's fear of better options of
course. You want...
Because it's so many. It's so wild to go from nothing to just a billion
wild
opportunities
abundance.
And options. And you have that choice and ability to have options.
Yeah, of course. And then you start finding sports. And your mom encourages you a lot to try to like exercise and be active and like move your body and have control of your body.
Yeah.
And what were those first sports? I know rowing was probably one of the early ones that you got into that you were like, oh, this is it. Did it snap immediately in your brain? You're like, this is what I need to be doing.
Not in that way. Not in like, oh my gosh, like I need to be doing this. It was, oh my gosh, I belong here. This is where like my home is. So I felt it when my mom knelt on my bed, and then I felt it again when I took my leg off and pushed away from the dock, and it was just me in the boat. And I could literally, the oars and controlling the oars, I felt it underneath the boat in the water. And it's that not being in control of things, but I felt like finally like I was in the right place, because I went from Ukraine to Buffalo, New York, moved to Kentucky, had my legs one leg amputated in Buffalo, moved to Kentucky, and was readjusting to new friends, new everything.
Yeah, can you explain that briefly? Just why you had to have one of the legs amputated?
So my mom knew I was gonna have my legs, the one amputated, the short one, my little baby leg that we had like a whole little ceremony for before.
That you nap with.
Yeah, my nap leg, my pillow, and then I could like pull my, because the toes are curled, I would just pull my hair behind my ear with. It's weird. Like I like a Grudge. Look at The Grudge, and that's who I was. But she knew that one was gonna have to be amputated instantly, and she waited a year before that one was amputated so I could learn the language. So she's not just taking me from Ukraine, where we don't speak each other's language, and take my body parts. She thought that wasn't the right thing to do.
Makes sense.
And yeah, she's a pretty good mom.
Yeah.
Mom instincts are kicking in,
I guess,
instantly. And it's because of the weight-bearing bone. That one was obvious. The right one, they said they could keep, they'll save, it won't be an issue, it'll just hurt. But what was happening as I was getting old, like I was able to walk, and I taught myself how to walk because I was so malnourished. I was 35 pounds and I was almost turning 8, and I was 34 inches tall. So the body weight wasn't affecting those bones, and that's why partially I was able to do that. As I grew, within the first 6 inches, I grew 6 months, I grew 8 inches when I came to America. And my mom says it's food, but then also just affection. And that actually, she said, stimulates growth hormones as a child. So when you're hugged and when you cry, and you're like, well, yeah, when your mom or your dad hugs you, if you're crying, it releases these things in your body, and it like promotes that in that early stages of a childhood.
Crazy. I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
I mean, there are short people right now listening to this that are so angry.
They're probably like,
said that.
What,
like,
Mom? Did you just not love me enough?
Yeah, no, they're trying to fight their parents. They're trying to swing on them.
I knew it.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so I grew that fast, but because of that speed of becoming healthy, I was getting actually weight, and it came to a point where I couldn't, the weight-bearing bone was not a weight-bearing bone.
Right, because now you're getting to a normal healthy weight, and your legs are not normal.
It's just giving out. And that was a whole issue because I moved to Kentucky, and they said, and I tried rowing, and I fell in love with it, and it was my place. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. And then they're told, we have to, whenever you're ready, we have to amputate your second leg, but it's your option, but you have to tell us between 4 months or whatever the window is. So it's not really your option. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm ready to amputate my leg, only if you amputate it below the knee, because we're talking about the knee joints and every joint, because I knew what I was missing already from that other one. And they said, okay, we can do that. But that's not what happened. And they, in the surgery, they said, oh, this is not going to sustain because it's not an actual right knee. And I'll never forget the feeling when I woke up and like I go to sleep thinking that my leg's going to be below the knee. My life's amazing. I'm going to have opportunities. I can do everything. And then I fall back because I'm top heavy and they're both above the knee. And that's where I started hating life. On top of that, memories from Ukraine that I was suppressing so much were coming back. And then on top of that, the epidural was to the wrong side. So they numbed the wrong one, and they were trying to tell my mom I had a low pain tolerance. I have to give the medication a chance to work. But no, it's because the one that was amputated when I was 9 was numb. And the one that was just freshly amputated was not numb at all.
They amputated the leg without an epidural, so you could feel.
Well, it was in there, but it just not shifted to the wrong side. They had it set in the wrong side.
So were you feeling it completely when you woke up?
Yes. It was not numbing. And so like when I tried, like this one, I could not move at all. The one that
it's
was
numb.
Yeah,
because it's
this
full
one,
of drugs.
it was
What the
spasming
fuck?
because I'm highly allergic to codeine and stuff, and so all this medication, narcotics are coated with codeine, and I'm having these crazy reactions to it, and this whole leg is going everywhere.
This
and
is in America?
Yeah, it happens.
How do they...
So I got angry from that. That's the one thing that I'm not okay with.
I'm angry about that. How do they not put it in the right thing? How, like, they know which one is coming off,
Yeah.
but then they put the epidural in the wrong one. They don't check. They don't put
On the back, yeah, and then so
They
they
don't
were
put the
saying, like,
Sharpie on it. Like, hey, this is the thing. Like,
yeah. I mean, they do. There's just...
people are
There's a whole
idiots.
lot. And because it was a last minute change and they didn't plan for it, they didn't leave enough skin to close. And so they put a cast, but underneath the cast, partially the pain is because the
skin is being
incision
stretched.
was open because it didn't leave enough.
This is like some
And so you
Civil
could
War
see
shit. Like,
the ligaments on the bone.
what the hell?
Yeah. And so I'm like, no, I know, I guess I do have a high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
And in that
That is
situation, it's like, I
crazy.
know I have a high pain tolerance, but this shit's not right. There's something really wrong here. But yeah,
And how old are you at this point?
14.
You're 14? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is so... I'm so angry.
Yeah.
Can we go fight them? Let's go fight this anesthesiologist. I'll back you up for real.
Oh my God.
This is so crazy.
It was, yeah. And that was a hard transition. And the only thing I could think about, so it led to me being in the hospital, stuck to a bed forever to let the wound close from the inside out. And
so
thankfully I had rowing. I had that feeling.
And that was the
of being
thing
in the
that
boat.
eventually pulled you out.
Yeah.
Like that, like, depressive bout.
Yeah.
And how long was that depression for? Like a year that you're just like miserable?
Oh, jeez. No, I mean, that happened all the way till 23, 25, really. I was angry. And when I was racing, I didn't realize I was racing angry.
Oh, really?
Just so mad at the world and was just throwing everything into it. And that's what sport for me was.
Right.
When I didn't get out to be like, I didn't know I didn't know cross country skiing existed.
Right, of
I've never
course.
even seen that sport at all. And
how do you get in the boat the first time? Your mom encourages you and is like, hey, let's go try to row, or you knew someone that was doing it?
so there's a person at this middle school, his job was to go around and to help people who with differences, unique differences, physical differences in their body to make sure they're getting around their school okay. And he ran the Louisville Adaptive Rowing Club, Randy, and he said, hey, you should come out for this. I didn't like it because it was called adapted rowing, and I wanted to do volleyball with my friends. And once again, a label was being put on me being a disabled girl, and then because I'm a disabled girl, I need to do an adaptive sport, and I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
My mom was very persistent. She's like, just go and try it. Just go and try it. Long story short, finally, I'm like, fine, I'll go. And that's how I got into it. And I just, by accident, and finally but then it's the best thing. Because if I wasn't missing these legs and didn't have, well, that time, the one leg, but I would have never gotten into sports. And I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that outlet to let all that anger out.
And at what point are you angry rowing and using this as an outlet? Are you like, oh, I'm actually good at this and I can actually start competing at this? And then, oh, I'm going to the Olympics for this. Like, what were those levels?
It was not me at all. Like, I didn't realize I was good at this until 2014. But 2000...
That's when you won your first medal, right?
First independent. Yeah, 2012 was the first one with my rowing partner, Rob Jones, in London for rowing. It was a bronze medal. And I always questioned, like, because it was the doubles. I'm like, well, what did I bring to this boat? Like, is it because he was so strong and I got lucky with him being a Marine and he's a double above knee amputee and he lost his legs through an IED explosion in Afghanistan. So everything, shout out to him, because everything I learned as a teammate, as a friend, and as an athlete was watching him and how he moved. And he's the reason why I'm wearing these, showing these, because I had foam. I wanted to hide my legs. And I saw in him, I'm like, that's badass. Holy shit. Like, those are so cool.
Yeah, carbon fiber.
Yeah.
Like...
And then I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, why does that look cool on you and not me? And then, like, would I look like that? Because I had foam and nylons and trying to cover everything. Trying
to make it look normal,
real.
quote unquote. Yeah.
It's not real. It's foam.
Yeah.
I can shape all the foam I want on the calf. It's not going to be real.
Right.
And so, yeah, he did a lot. But
do you find that there's a psychological difference in people that are born without legs or born missing limbs versus people that lose them later?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Well, so like a lot of those people who are born without their legs, they're like, I would never change this. I would want to have no legs I would never want to ask for legs. I'm like, what the fuck? Have you ever, like, no, I would. If someone's like, you can take this pill and your legs will grow back, I'm going to do it. Because I remember what it feels like to walk on grass and that hot, like the hot asphalt in the summer, and just like the things on your feet and feeling a different sensation. And it's just what is normal to you and how you identify and view yourself too. So if you're born that way, that's the only way you see yourself. Like, you don't know anything different. I knew different. I had legs. And I saw now it's so annoying because it's like I'm sleeping and Aaron's like, oh, come over here, come at the end of it, because he wants more bed space and I'm so tiny, I downsized to 4 feet. He's like, come here. Like I'm a dog or something. Come on. Yeah. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not gonna put the foot on the bed. But somehow I'm 4 foot tall and I utilize a whole king size bed.
Oh yeah, this is a girl thing, 100%.
That's a guy thing too.
No, stop it. No, women do this so much worse.
Men don't know where the middle of the bed is either.
No, this is girls. No, because women will be like, oh, can you hold me? And then they'll be in the middle because I'm on my side, and then you fall asleep, and then you just happen to still be in the middle.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if that's where you feel comfortable, it's where you're comfortable. You can't help that it's in the middle.
I'm gonna try this with my wife. I'm gonna try to make her sleep at the foot of the bed. I'll be like, hey, try that. See how you like it there. It's so much more space, right? I don't know. We fight about this a lot. I don't know.
But the weird thing is, like, I remember like seeing the feet, and I do too. He's so annoying.
He's also a big guy though, right?
He's like a big guy. I don't care though. It doesn't matter. That's what he's like. And then when oh my God. And then he's like, because he rolls over and takes all the comforters, and I'm like struggling. It's like fighting. And I'm like, Jesus, Aaron. And he's like, I'm bigger. And I'm just roll. I'm like, you don't have to, no.
See, he's lucky too, because girls always have cold feet, but you, not a problem.
No,
you know
I just have cold nubs, cold kneecaps.
Cold kneecaps.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But like the weird things I was gonna say is like I remember seeing in the bed, and you're seeing legs. You fill out the bed, and it's so weird to not.
Do you ever get phantom limb syndrome?
Phantom pain, itches. Like my ankle will itch, and so I'll go down here and I'll itch the air, and it goes away, or like right behind the knee.
How bizarre is that?
And then the pain that happens, it's like this sharp spasms, you can't control it, and it's really bad the first part of the amputation, and then it gets more manageable. You learn that pain, so you know what to expect. But it's because your brain is trying to like straighten the leg or moving it, and so it doesn't know those brain pathways, neurological pathways. Your leg's gone. It just thinks it's still there, and that's what a lot of it is.
Right.
Especially, I mean, not so much if you're born without legs. You don't have it, because it's just like you're lucky. You don't have. I don't know.
Right. So do you...
The paper cut thing, you know?
Yeah, of course. Do you think you still row angry? Like, it's been obviously more years than from when you started and from when a lot of the traumas first began. But do you find yourself like you're in a Paralympics and you're still rowing angry, you're training? Do you still find that fire is the same?
It is. So I'm not rowing anymore because I injured my back. But I thought I did this all the way up until 2018 games in Pyeongchang. And I thought anger was my superpower. Like, that's what was making me strong. And I felt it. I could feel it all build up from everything. And it's interesting you're saying mindfulness, because I didn't believe in any of it. And you're getting into it because I started doing that recently more, actually legit giving it a try and doing it. Because for the sport of biathlon and skiing and shooting, we work with a sports psychologist for the shooting aspect of things. And he had me hold your hands out and think of something that makes you angry. And that thing that you're saying is your superpower as an athlete that makes you strong and everything else. And he's like pushing down on it. He's like, resist me pushing down. And I do. And I'm like resisting it instantly. But then it starts to kind of shake and wobble a little bit. And then he said, think of something that makes you happy and you love and makes you smile. So I thought about my mom, and just like that first day I saw her. And at first I'm like, he pushes me down. I'm like, see? His name's Artur. He's Polish, and he had this really cool accent. So whatever he said, I was like, yeah, you're right. But this time I'm like, I'm right, and I'm proving you wrong. Until he's like, no, just keep thinking about it. And I resisted, and I was able to resist a lot longer. So it was more sustainable. And I've always been that kind of a person that like, I need to feel it to understand it. I can't really, because that's how I grew up. I didn't get to speak my words. I had to feel these things, whether it was good or bad. And when that hit, that's when I realized that might be my superpower for the sprints, but it's not if I want a longevity in this sport or as an athlete. And to sustain it, it's that I need to learn how to not let go of those.
Yeah, of course. Things. That's interesting. Literally using the power of love to fuel you versus anger and violence. I've heard this with actors, that there was an actor, I forget who, it might have been like Denzel or something, and they were asking, if you're doing a really emotional scene and you have to cry, do you think of something really sad? Like, what is the sad thing that you think about? And he goes, I actually don't think about sad things. I think about the times where I felt the most loved. I think about the times where I felt the most embraced and I felt the warmest and I felt the happiest. Those are the things that make it easier for actors to cry. And it's also a much more sustainable and healthy way to channel those things. If every day you have to go act and you're on stage and you're reliving torments and traumas, it might get you to the middle quicker, but in order to go long, it's going to burn you out.
Yeah.
And so he's like finding love and letting the love fuel the emotions, even crying and things like that, is actually a way more sustainable way. And it's exactly what you said.
So I never even thought about that, but it makes complete sense in that aspect. And I never even thought about like the negative aspect, like channeling that bad stuff for them too. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, it's all that release of cortisol, all the release of stress. I mean, it's just gonna, it's just,
But I love that feeling.
Yeah, I know, right? Because it makes you feel good in the immediate.
Yeah.
But
I think it's because like, I don't know. And this is interesting because like the background that I had, all those feelings that I bottled up were like this little like hot fire that I'm just like, it was that was me. And I didn't like the way my body felt because it was so foreign until I think about my mom and now Erin. But like, I was so uncomfortable and afraid of that love and that warmth and everything else because I had so much to be angry about. So it was so easy to be angry about my prosthetics. It was so easy to be angry about the memories that were coming back. What was hard and scary was letting that love in and actually embracing it to be sustainable. And the weird thing, and I say this happened in 2018 because in 2018, and it's my fourth games, and I've never won a gold medal at that point, and I'm favored to go into those games to win everything, to win a lot of gold medals for the first time. But the difference also was I believed in myself, like I'm capable of being a gold medalist. Like I'm not just going to be that second or third best athlete anymore. Like I believed it in me, and that is a huge, huge missing link for an athlete. Like you have to believe it in you. It doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah.
And I finally realized it. And then I fall on ice and break my elbow a few weeks before we're about to leave for the games. And I mean, Mark, like I just had my first sponsors because in 2014, I was living out of my car. I didn't have the money. I didn't have any sponsors. I didn't pay attention in math, even though in Ukraine I did really good math. I didn't pay attention in American school. I missed how much I needed. So right before we left for the 2014 games, I was sleeping out of my car, which was great. I lost weight. I was able to climb faster. It worked out. That's where I got my first.
It's probably easier for you to sleep in a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Logistically.
Well, I had a TV. It didn't have like the insulation, but it had the TV in it, like a DVD thing.
That's nice.
And so like that, then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all of that all over again. I'm going to go back to that moment. But then Artur, a sports psychologist, had me do this activity because also he knew I was an angry athlete because when I shot, I was not a good shooter. I was like, shit, fuck, blah, and I would just like cuss every time. And you can't do that. Like I was just an aggressive, my spirit animal is Tasmanian devil on a team because I'm not that dainty butterfly.
Yeah.
Until he told me that. And then I finally started to like let that love in and accept it. And there's one thing to know you have it, but there's a whole nother thing to actually accept it within yourself and truly let it in. And
so what was that process like? What was that discovery going from like, oh, I am good and I'm kind of happy to be here and oh, this is so fun, to being like, nah, I'm the best of this shit. I'm going to win golds. Like I deserve it. Like, was there a moment? Was it a series of tools and exercises that got you there? Because I feel that sometimes where I'm like, I sometimes want to get past. I've been in a lot of situations where I'm just happy to be there. And now I'm getting to situations where I'm like, no, I deserve to be here. I want to be the best at the thing that I'm doing. And I feel like I'm at that moment where I'm kind of making that transition. So I'm curious for you, like, what were the things that led to that?
So see, this is because I still don't feel it. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm afraid if I accept it, I'm afraid I might then like the other end of like, well, I have to live up to it then, and people expect it. And that's really not actually healthy either, to be honest. But 2014 is where I learned, and I was saying like about my rowing partner, Rob Jones, because we were together in London. We're doing that together. And I always questioned, what did I do to contribute? Like, did I do anything? And so when I was in 2014 and I got the first my medal on my own on start line, I'm by myself, whatever I put into it, whatever comes out is going to be like whatever I do. And I got a silver medal, and I was a few seconds off from gold. And that's the moment I realized like I do belong here. And it was kind of baby steps, kind of like where you're like, okay, no, I do deserve to be the best and to like push and strive, and I deserve it, and I can do it too. And from that happened when the doctors, when I broke my elbow, they said, no, you're not going to go to the games. Your games are over. So I already was going into those like believing I belong in this world stage. And now I was going to these games like I belong and I deserve to have a gold medal. I know I'm capable of doing it. And that happens. And then they're saying you can't do it. And it was a combination of everything, just always proving society, always proving everyone what I can and can't do. And then I'm like, well, shit, I'm already missing my legs. How worse can it get? I just get a bionic elbow. Cool. Like, I put all these hours and years, and this is the first time I believe I can do it. I want to see what I can do with this right now. And that's exactly what happened. And I ended up getting second and third, re-injuring my elbow, and it was a sprint, which was my favorite race. And if you're passionate about it, you will find a way to do it and do it well and give 100% of yourself. And that's exactly like, I was like, I don't care. I'm willing to sacrifice. And they said, if you do this, you might injure yourself in this elbow, and you might not be able to race in the same way again, or think about quality of life outside, because I use my arm so much. I don't care. I believe in myself, and I want to see what I'm capable of doing, finishing what I started. I started this. I want to see where I'm going to get to. And that power of belief, everyone else didn't, but I did. And that was that missing link for me for so many years. And we found a way, did this crazy tape job with this brace in my next race after re-injuring it. That's how I win my gold medal. And I think it's that persistence. Like, you have to believe it in yourself, because you have to really genuinely like look in the mirror and like, Mark, you are gonna be there, you are gonna get this, and see yourself in it. It might not be that perfect, like it might take 10 years, it might take 30 years, but I wanted to finish what I started. And for me, it was putting that gold medal, my first gold medal, around my mom's neck. And I pictured that moment. And that's what finally happened. It didn't happen my first games. I didn't make my first games. I didn't win my first gold medal until my fourth Paralympic Games. And that's the part of it. It's like your timeline. It's your timeline. And it's so easy in this life to compare yourself. And I still do that now. But then you're like, you know what? This is my timeline. It's going to come. I believe it. I'm putting the work in. It's not happening now because there's some more I need to learn. There's something else I need to gain to be able before I get there. That's needed, that missing puzzle piece. And that's how I thought about it.
I mean, that's wild. That is so cool. What was that feeling like once you get the gold medal and you do put it around your mom? Is it anything you felt before?
No. Like, I was shaking. I was shaking in my legs. My legs inside my legs were shaking. I just like, don't be that idiot to fall down on this moment. And the way I finally I envisioned this perfect, like bright, like lights everywhere, and just like this anthem playing, and fantasized this moment. None of that happened. It was quite the opposite, but it's quite fitting to our story though too, because the way we met started in a very dark, stark area of the world and life in a dark room. And that's what happened. I got to put that gold medal around my mom's neck for the first time. As the lights in the award show were getting shut down, everyone was leaving. It was just simple. It was perfect. It was just our moment. It didn't have to be this like captured in this beautiful bright lights and just this eureka moment. It was perfect for us.
Isn't that funny that the simplicity and the subtlety is always the thing that means the most?
Yeah.
You know, like it's like we create these grand ideas in our head where we're like, oh, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then actually it's the more stripped down version. It's the more like subtle, nuanced human version that's like, oh, this is actually better.
Yeah.
It's
and
the
then
little
it's
things.
like later on, a month from now, a year from now, it's gonna mean that much more. And you just like those little things just mean even more than it did that month ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That's what leaves that imprint on you and that molds you.
Can I ask you another question about the Paralympics?
Yeah.
How do they equalize sports? So for example,
well, that we need a whole,
because that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like if you are someone with a below the knee amputation,
Yeah.
you would qualify for the Paralympics.
Yeah.
But you might be in a swimming competition against someone that has no legs.
yeah.
To me, that seems like an obvious advantage, disadvantage. So what do they do in some of those sports, and the sports that you're in specifically, that equalize those
Yeah. So you
anatomical
mean
issues?
like in a swimming event, like when you see like someone below the leg and some below the knee and someone above the knee kind of thing?
Right, exactly. Like it can't be perfectly even and
Yeah.
fair unless someone has the same exact disability.
Yeah.
And so
And that's the cool, interesting thing. I think a lot of people don't realize within the disability, me and you can have the same spinal cord injury in the same exact way, injured at the same level. We're going to have two different abilities and what we can do from that. So it is like, it's never going to be perfect. And that's what it is. But the way they do it in the Paralympics, they call it the classification system. So they have a whole lot of research and data, and it's being reused every time each year. But so for skiing, for me, they base everything on core. So I'm considered a 12 because I take my legs off. It's dead weight. I don't want to carry these bad boys around. And I have all of my core. So I'm a 12, which means when I cross the finish line, that is my time. Nothing's taken off. But if you have a spinal cord injury a little bit lower, or you don't have a little back extension, whatever it is, there's an 11.5, and so you get 4% off your time. My fiance is actually an 11.5, so he's also a Paralympic athlete, Aaron, and he was shot when he was 13 in a hunting accident. And a hunter just heard him and thought he was shooting a deer, and he didn't. He shot him. So he is an 11.5 because he's an incomplete. So he can move his leg, but he can't walk and weight bear on his leg. And then there's people who because he can move that one leg, he's 11.5. If someone can't move both of their legs and has less of their core, they're an 11, and it goes on to 10. There's 5 classes in this sport of skiing. And it's basically, so when they cross the finish line, when I say 5%, 4%, 13%, that's how much time is taken off of your finish time. Because the idea is when you cross the finish line, the times should be competitive.
that makes sense. So they adjust it based off of your core ability.
For that sport. And then swimming is interesting. So what people don't realize, when I do my sport in cross country, they don't think about hands. So in order for me to ski, I have to actually tape my hands on. And when I'm shooting, I can't feel the trigger because of these little T-Rex claws. So I am disadvantaged in that, but they don't consider anything about the upper body extremities. But if you're a swimmer, the way you hold your hands, it will make a big difference with the water flow and the resistance. So they literally look at everything and will give you a point system. And based on the point system of that classification, you get put in this type of class. So in skiing, you're competing, all the girls, sit skiers, are competing for one medal. They do it factoring. Swimming and track and field, they will do each individual class. So like if I was a 12, all the 12s would be competing against each other for a medal. So they have so many more opportunities for that, if that makes sense. And that's how the Paralympics does the classification. And in swimming, it's interesting because you will see someone that, okay, why is this person with no leg and an arm competing against someone with 2 legs or whatever?
Exactly.
And you're like, what? No one knows, to be honest. That there's always going to be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
It is, and it's not perfect.
You can't make it perfectly even.
And people will benefit, and people will get the short end of the stick. It's like in life, where you're born on the silk sheets or you're born on the cement floor.
Yeah, of course.
But that's where just educating people too of like that, and then just different. It's trying to create, like, you're doing a better job having athletes' voices being heard. What's hard is when you're an athlete and you're trying to use your voice, but you're a competitive athlete, they will not listen to it if it benefits you, and they think that because you're winning and you're at the top. So I can't wait till I retire.
Because then you can start changing
Because
things.
I want to change it for the next generation.
Of course. And it can't directly benefit you, and I get why they would think that.
And it makes sense. And it's hard for people to see that. But there is a lot of data, a lot of research that they do.
But it's not going to get better unless there's people that it's affecting or speaking out and changing
You
things.
have to speak out, and you have to not be afraid to speak out and change it. And you have to have people, society, and you just like tuning in, watching the Paralympics and like, wait a minute, or like, wow, that is so cool. And realizing the sweat equity of Paralympic athletes, the way they're doing their sport is just the same as Michael Jordan, as Usain Bolt, Serena Williams, all these people. Like, it's the same, if not harder, because I have to work 3 times as hard to go and step my damn weight up over here, excuse my French. And like, okay, now I'm ready. I'm going to start doing my workout. But yeah, and so for people just to tune in and the visibility and people support it and see it, then they'll start creating more of like, okay, well, people are curious, they're asking questions, let's... So,
Okay, 2 last things I want to ask. Do you ever feel like your experiences in your childhood specifically have made you jaded to some people's complaints in America? Like coming to the States and hearing some people maybe complaining about, situations that they're in. Do you ever feel like a little calloused and you're like, look, I know your thing is hard, but you don't even understand how hard it can be for other people. Does that ever creep in your mind, or are you pretty balanced?
No, I feel like I'm pretty balanced because like we don't know each other's shoes. I don't know your path, the shoes you walked. There could be things invisible that I can't see, that I don't know. And my things are just very visible and obvious, but you don't know the scar tissue that I have from the inside that people don't like understand.
That's cool.
So I think about it that way. But if you're like, gosh, my God, my foot is hurting, it's getting stiff in this airport, and I'm like, yours is stiff. At least you can move it 2 degrees or whatever it is.
That is interesting. Have you ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
One of my favorite books ever. And the part that always sticks out to me is when he references suffering as a gas. And this idea that as people are truly suffering, that pain just fills the space and fills the void of your threshold of suffering. And, whether you're in an orphanage in Ukraine or in a war zone somewhere else or suffering from depression or whatever the thing is happening, that pain just fills the space. Even though they might not be objectively the same pain to the individual subjectively, it just is all the space for pain that you can feel. And I wonder, do you identify with that type of thinking? Do you feel like that's true?
Absolutely. I think it's 100% true. And that actually, I read that book. I got diagnosed and I had a tumor that had to be removed 100 days out from Tokyo Summer Games. And the therapist had me read that book, and it changed my whole entire way of how I view that. And that's a lot of, there's so much power in that. Yeah,
of course.
And I agree.
And then the last thing I was curious about, and we touched on this before, but I just want to know, is it frustrating when people infantilize you? Do you find that people are overly cautious with you? That like if you're walking through the airport, someone will be like, "Let me get your bag." Is it ever nice? Is it ever acceptable? Or are you always sort of like, "Leave me alone"? Like, what is your general feeling?
No, if someone wants to help, but don't do it because you're like, think I'm helpless because I don't have my legs.
Right. They don't realize you're an Olympian, like Paralympian gold medalist.
That's not got nothing to do with that. I just so happen to do sports and compete at them.
You just so happen to be a badass and one of the greatest Winter Olympians of all time.
I just so happen to have an incredible team around me that helps me be there.
Of course, but people see you and they're like, they must feel like, oh, you poor thing. And you're just like...
It's funny. It's both. So there's like both like, oh my God, you poor thing. Or, oh my God, that's so inspiring. Like you're going grocery shopping and you're getting gas. And no, my car's about to die. I need to go to my coffee shop, wherever I'm going. I'm going to get a drink. I deserve a drink. I need gas. We all need gas. Or we need toilet paper. That's not what's the most inspiring thing. And then there's some people who like have the opposite, just like don't, just watch and struggle. I'm like, okay, cool, totally. And then I will be that. Sometimes I'm like, I was passive aggressive, and Aaron's like, no, you were just aggressive, Oksana. Because sometimes like you just realize like it's okay to ask for help, but do it in like a normal way. You don't have to be like overly like just because of my legs and just yeah and just like all of a sudden don't know how to act. Like if you drop something and someone walks by and they're like, oh, here dude, whatever, I don't know, like if you looked at someone with glasses or your curly hair, my straight hair, I don't look at you different because I'm like, oh my god, Mark, you have curly hair. Shit, what do I do? Right. And then you just look but don't want to look.
It's just a different thing.
It's a different thing. My accessory is just visible. I want you to see it. I want you to ask questions. It's totally okay. Especially it's okay for kids. Don't be that mom that's like, shut up, don't say that. When the little kid's like, mommy, look at her legs. Kids are curious. And they're just genuine.
And it's okay to be curious.
Okay to be curious.
And you know that they're not trying to insult you.
Yeah, that kid's going to make my legs one day. I know it. If you let them be curious and like understand like, hey, look at isn't that so cool how many different ways we get around and look different? Like it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the skin color, as our hair texture, as our anything, and whiskey, bourbon, vodka, coffee, anything. It's just needs to be seen more because the more you see it, you'll understand it. When you understand it, you won't pop your eyeballs trying to like be like, what the hell?
Of course.
Like,
is it ever annoying going into buildings and they don't have an elevator or they won't have like a ramp and you're just like, really?
Sometimes, like, especially in the U.S.
Yeah,
because you're like, you understand it in Europe because it's like older cities and they can't. But
they just built something, and you can't get around it, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, I guess it depends what mood I'm in, how much coffee I had, because I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna get oblique workout here, and it's like it's fine, like I'm just gonna do it differently. But it's when people too like get all weird about it, like oh, there's an elevator, is that okay? And it's like, yeah, it's okay. I'll let you know if it's not okay. But then sometimes if it's a new building, please think about the different types of abilities that you will be coming to that business or will be here, because we all come in different shapes and sizes. Yeah, there's not just one mold.
I mean, Oksana, this is awesome. Really, thank you so much for coming.
I can't believe I'm here.
This is so cool. I really appreciate it. And I know obviously you have your book out now, which I'm going to read. I haven't read it yet, and I'm very excited.
It's pretty boring.
Stop it. No, it's not boring, because I know that there's a lot of things in the book that are a lot deeper than even what we're able to get into today. So I really recommend a lot of people go check it out. What's the name of the book?
The Hard Parts.
The Hard Parts. And it's out now. And you can get it Amazon, everywhere.
Yep.
And you can find out everything else people want to know about you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Genuinely, this is like so cool. I'm so glad we got to meet.
No, I'm not like the cool people you talk to normally. So
no,
this is so wild.
You're the coolest. This is so awesome, Oksana. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
But I bet they can't downsize.
No, that's true. They are one height, and that's what it is. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
Will you come back? We can do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll see you then. Thank you.